A day after President Donald Trump's stunning dismissal of FBI Director James Comey, protesters gathered in Washington, Chicago and other cities to urge an independent investigation of alleged collusion between Russia and Trump's presidential campaign. Waving signs and chanting outside the White House and its Senate constituency offices in other states, demonstrators said Trump's move had compromised the Federal Bureau of Investigation's probe. "I still don't have any love for Comey," said Cody Davis, 29, among a small group of protesters near Chicago's 96-story Trump International Hotel and Tower. "I'm not here to defend him. You could easily argue he lost the election for Hillary." Comey has been criticized by Democrats for his handling of an investigation surrounding 2016 Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server while she was Secretary of State. "The reason I'm here today is not that he was fired but because it was so clearly because Trump was afraid of something," Davis said. White House officials have denied any political motivation behind the firing, and Trump said Comey had not been doing a good job and had lost the confidence of everyone in Washington. Critics at various protests compare the Comey dismissal to the Saturday Night Massacre of 1973, in which President Richard Nixon fired an independent special prosecutor investigating the Watergate scandal. MoveOn.org and a coalition of liberal groups hastily organized protests at senators' offices in more than a dozen states including New York, Kentucky, Arizona, California, and Florida. Donald Trump just fired the one man in America who was leading the most thorough and long-lasting investigation of Donald Trump, Joe Comerford, campaign director for MoveOn.org, said in a statement. The issue also was discussed at town hall meetings being held by members of Congress across the country. For some Trump supporters the controversy was overblown. Denny Herman of Waymigo, Kansas, said Comey deserved to be fired and the Russia investigation would not turn up wrongdoing. He said there was no need for a special prosecutor. "It's just liberal crap," he said while relaxing at a bar. "We got bigger fish to fry." But in downtown Chicago, several dozen people banged pots and pans, waved signs reading "You can't fire the truth" and chanted "Investigate now." Several hundred people also gathered outside the White House and called for a special prosecutor. "I feel like what happened yesterday was truly shocking, and the Republicans won't stand up and do what they should without somebody pressing them," said demonstrator Kelly Raweda, a 34-year-old teacher from Washington. The White House on Thursday continued to defend its handling of the firing of the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, amid investigations into connections between the president's election campaign last year and Russian officials. At the center of the scrutiny is whether the Deputy Attorney General of the Justice Department, Rod Rosenstein, was instructed to draft a memo justifying the removal of FBI Director James Comey or whether he decided to write the document without direction. Rosenstein was upset with suggestions made by the White House that his memo suggested he called for Comey's firing, according to the Washington Post and ABC News. White House officials on Thursday denied any such reaction by Rosenstein, telling reporters the veteran prosecutor came up with the memo on his own and not necessarily at President Donald Trump's direction. The president is expected to visit FBI headquarters as soon as Friday, according to White House officials. Trump sent Comey a letter on Tuesday informing him of his immediate removal. Accompanying memos by Rosenstein and Attorney General Jeff Sessions mentioned Comey's mishandling of last year's investigation into Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server while she was Secretary of State. The news media, however, have been quoting sources in Washington asserting Comey was suddenly ousted because he wanted to intensify the Russia investigation. The firing has prompted Democrats to amplify their calls for an independent investigation into the Russia issue. Rosenstein's memo is a political document that appears hastily assembled to justify a preordained outcome, said Senator Dianne Feinstein, the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, in a statement issued Thursday. Senate Democrats say they are seeking details from the Justice Department on whether Comey, before his firing, requested additional funds and personnel for the FBI's probe of Russia ties. Some Republicans are also expressing concern about the timing and reason for Comey's abrupt removal. White House officials say Trump had been contemplating firing Comey since last November's presidential election. Former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers is under consideration to succeed Comey, according to senior White House officials. Rogers, a former FBI special agent, chaired the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. At a Senate intelligence hearing on Thursday, acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe pledged to inform lawmakers if there is any official interference into the Bureau's investigation into the Russia ties. "You cannot stop the men and women of the FBI from doing the right thing," added McCabe. Meanwhile, the attorneys general of 20 states are calling for an independent special counsel to look into possible Russian interference in last year's presidential election in which Trump defeated Clinton. There's more fallout over the firing of FBI Director James Comey. The timing and motivation of President Donald Trump's decision is being questioned. It's all happening as the president welcomes the Russian foreign minister to the Oval Office Wednesday. All suspicions lead to the Trump administration's ties to Russia. Comey was stepping up the FBI investigation into that connection just days before he was fired. On his first full day after being fired as director of the FBI, Comey sent a letter to his former colleagues. But the outrage over Comey's firing is widespread. Protesters chanted outside Senator Dianne Feinstein's San Francisco office. "We must investigate the whole Comey connection and what it is Trump's trying to keep quiet," said one protester. And in Washington, even Republicans are suspicious. "The timing and the reasons for this decision made little sense to me," said North Carolina Senator Richard Burr. In the Oval Office, where the president met with Russia's foreign minister and ambassador at one point Wednesday, Trump said he fired Comey because he wasn't doing a good job. Very simply, he was not doing a good job. But just days ago Comey had requested more money and agents for his investigation into Russia's interference in the presidential election. Democrats are now insisting that a special counsel takes over, even postponing all Senate hearings Wednesday to make a point. The decision to fire Comey raises questions about the appropriateness and timing of firing the person in charge of an investigation that could, I won't say would, but could implicate the administration, Feinstein said. Despite calls for a special counsel, Republican leaders are not budging. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says a new investigation would impede the current work being done. Senate Democrats brought Senate business to a halt on Wednesday when they invoked a Senate rule preventing committee hearings from lasting more than 2 hours after the body convenes in protest of President Donald Trump's decision to fire FBI Director James Comey, according to The Washington Post. According to roll call, the 2-hour rule allows a minority party to restrict the duration committee meetings. Democrats invoked the rule in order to call on Republicans to appoint a special prosecutor to conduct an investigation into possible Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. Although some Democrats have previously argued that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton lost her presidential bid because Comey notified Congress that he was reopening the investigation into her use of a private email server just days before the election, some have now alleged that Trump fired Comey in order to impede the FBI's investigation into Russian meddling in the election. During remarks on the Senate floor, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, DNY, said, "I hope the majority leader agrees with me that we need to get to the bottom of this, and get a handle on all of the facts so that we can grapple with them. I'd remind him and my Republican friends that nothing less is at stake than the American people's faith in our criminal justice system, and the integrity of the executive branch of our government," Schumer said. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, RK, has indicated that he does not support appointing a special prosecutor. Republicans voiced objections to bringing the upper chamber to a halt. In a statement, Senator Lindsey Graham, RSC, said he had been forced to cancel a hearing on law enforcement's access to data due to the Democrats obstructing normal business in the Senate. after hearing the news that FBI Director James Comey had been fired on Tuesday evening. Northampton resident Lindsay Sabardoza says she knew local activists should do something. Sabardoza was one of several event organizers for a flash protest that took place on the steps of Northampton City Hall on Wednesday afternoon as a response to Comey's dismissal. President Trump's decision to dispense with the head member of the U.S.'s leading domestic intelligence agency has spawned outcry, alarm, and criticism from multiple corners of the nation's political community, as well as from activist groups. There is little precedent for an FBI director being fired. Since the birth of the agency in 1908, the only other time this has occurred was 24 years ago when President Bill Clinton let go then-Director William Sessions amidst a controversy surrounding ethical concerns. Comey's firing also comes in the midst of a potential clash between the FBI and the Trump White House, after Comey announced in March that the agency had actually been investigating the Trump campaign for possible ties to Russia since July of 2016. Only several days before Comey was let go, he allegedly asked the Department of Justice for more money to further pursue the investigation into the Trump cabinet's possible ties to Russia. Critics of Trump's decision to can Comey now allege that the president fired him as a response to the FBI director's public announcement of the investigation. Defenders of the president's decision say that Comey has proven himself unfit for his position and that Trump was right to let him go. Sabardoza, who could be seen handing out lists of contacts for members of the U.S. House Intelligence Committee on Wednesday evening, said that she believes there's something not right about the Trump White House's relationship with Russia and that she believes it should be investigated by a special prosecutor. Sabardoza is a member of the Pioneer Valley Women's March, which is a branch of the Pioneer Valley Resistance Coalition, which is, in turn, associated with Indivisible, a national non-profit and resistance group that formed in the wake of Donald Trump's election to office. In an interview with The Republican, Sabardoza said that she became very involved in local activism after Trump won the 2016 presidential election. "I've been really heavily involved since pretty much the day after the election," Sabardoza said, revealing that she acted as the coordinator for the Hampden, Hampshire, and Franklin Counties Women's March on Washington, the national protest movement that sprung up as a response to Trump's allegedly derogatory remarks about women. "Why is it important to be involved? Just read the newspaper," she said. "We had the director of the FBI fired last night. We had high-level Russian diplomats in the White House today. We have no independent investigation and there's no transparency about what's going on," she said. "The reason we are having this rally is that we want an independent investigation, not a partisan one," Sabardoza said. "It's not about pitting Democrats against Republicans. It's about getting real answers about what's happening in our country," she said.